Greetings, one and all. Peace, everyone, and power to everyone. Once again, it's Yuya, and I'm now reporting from the land known as California, coming across from the east and coming up from the southwest, and we are now here in California, which is a space that I always value, being able to walk across, breathe the air here, and get some of this California sunshine. It delivers different messages. You know, there was a time when our ancestors, they taught that their ancestors would communicate with them through sun rays, you know. So sun is an important thing to receive. It's not just for the protein you receive from the vitamin D, but it's also for the divination that's possible, the messages. But in any event, I'm bringing you another Thunderground Thursday. And today being Thursday, obviously it's appropriate, but also around this time, the last time I was here, I did a movie breakdown on the movie Thor. And I did it in this exact same canyon, not in the same spot, but in this canyon that I'm currently in. So I thought it would be appropriate to do Thunderground Thursday, considering also that Thor, you know, we get the name Thursday from Thor, from the Nordic deity Thor. So I thought it was very appropriate and apt to do a Thunderground Thursday episode. You know, one of the things I have been speaking to you all about was continuing on with the breakdown and the explanations of basic leadership, qualities of leadership. And, oh, you can hear the rocks falling behind me. It's kind of cool. I'm actually in the midst of a cavern that I just did some offerings in. You know, so after I did my offerings and I spoke to the hills and the mountains and the energies in them, there was a lot of communication that started coming forth. And one of the first things that happened was a lot of rocks began to fall. And I started seeing long lines of birds, like 6 or 7, walking down certain trails. So I basically just followed them and to what seems to be a live end. I don't want to call it a dead end, but I'm going to call it a live end. But I certainly am not going to be climbing this mountain in back of me anytime soon. But back to our Thunderground Thursday, you know. I covered some of the tenets and the basic understandings of what I call the warrior code, right? And I explained that when shopping for a leader, or even trying to develop the leader within you or within your children, or the tenets of your program or your organization, there are certain things, certain base and fundamental, rudimentary characteristics that you want to make sure that you cover first. One of which being honor, which I spoke about. The other being character. I also spoke about character as well. And I did tell everybody that I would soon be speaking on integrity. See those rocks back there? So there's a lot now. That's good though. I take it as a good sign. You know, I guess an avalanche would be a great sign. But so yeah, dealing with that science of integrity, I thought it was critical to speak on. And if anyone's wondering, this is a herb, not herb, but herbs. Sometimes I make certain blends of herbs, if you can hear me, because this will be going out on the broadcast and some of you may see this. You may hear me inhaling and exhaling, which is really more incense, but it's a blend that I created. And certain blends I create depending on who I'm giving energy or adumu etutu to. And you can tote it or you can burn it. I don't sell them or anything like that. But when I'm doing ritual with clients or consecrations or initiations, then I use them. So yeah, you know, it's not chronic. I know I'm in California. It's not Indo. But yeah, integrity is what I wanted to touch on next. The science and the energy of integrity and what that really means. Because once you get an understanding, a basic understanding of honor, and then you develop a basic understanding of character, then what comes next certainly is integrity. I would say that maybe integrity is the foundational point. Maybe integrity is the source, but it's something that we usually come to after our understanding or development of the other qualities. because integrity is something that has to be protected. And oftentimes we don't know how to protect it or why to protect it unless we develop a sense of honor and we develop a sense of character. So, of course, when you're dealing with the English language and its interpretations, a lot of words, thoughts, and ideas are reinterpreted for the purposes of the politicizing of the actual language. So that politicizing of the language actually creates an environment within the English lexicon where words actually, their meanings change. You know, a lot of times root words become adjectives in order to take away from what the original meaning is. Integrity is one of those words, very similar to the other words that we covered. A lot of times when you look at them and you try to uncover the concepts, again, like I told you before, you're dealing with the matrix here. So the matrix determines what your pathways to freedom will look like. So when you decide, you know what, I'm going to pick up a dictionary, I'm going to pick up an encyclopedia, and I'm going to get free and free my mind and start learning what these words mean and the meaning behind certain things, what happens in effect is that the strengths that be, what they do is they say, okay, well, we know which way you're going to go when you do this, and we're going to tell you how to do it and what you're going to find when you do it. So when you open up a dictionary, you're opening up a brand new dictionary with brand new definitions and terms. You're not opening up a real dictionary. It's almost like if you go into a courtroom, you know, they speak legalese, and you can go in with your English dictionary understanding, but legalese is a fictional language. So certain words mean something totally different when you go into a courtroom. When you say resident in a courtroom, it means something different than how we consider resident. When you say understand in a courtroom, it means something different than if you say understand in your normal or casual vernacular. So integrity is one of those words as well where the meaning has changed. So now getting to the new understanding and meanings of integrity, if you were to look up integrity now, it would lean towards, in definition, a sense of moral uprightness and a sense of moral, one who has a moral stance that is unshakable. Okay, and this aligns itself with the idea of one being unblemished or one being perfect. Okay, integrity also relates itself to piousness. Unfortunately, though, that is not the original meaning of integrity. Integrity comes from the Latin word integratum. And integratum is where you also get the word integer. Okay, so if anyone is familiar with math, or I'm sure you've probably heard the term what an integer is, or integer. Sometimes it's pronounced either way depending on what country you live in. So integrity doesn't deal with your moral uprightness or your dedication to your spirituality, your dedication to your religion. Before I get into the definition, some of you may be saying, well, does it matter what it was originally meant to mean? Because if we all believe it means this and everybody knows what I mean. It's just like when people are trying to have debates and they say things that don't make sense, and then you start breaking down what they're actually saying. They say, well, you know what I meant. Come on now, you ain't getting tall. Everybody knows what I was talking about. But in truth, yeah, I know what you meant, but you didn't know what you mean. You know, when you're dealing with the understanding of words and paradigms, there were certain energetic paradigms that are associated with certain words. Like, for instance, if we use the word husband, or we use the word wife, or we use the word marriage, there is a paradigm that is associated with those particular terms, with those words, with those ideas, with those definitions. And try as you may to break outside of those paradigms, the paradigm is typically usually stronger because it's much older, and it's a collective agreement. It's a collective energetic and atomic agreement amongst many people that this is what this means, and this is what this means in terms of its social and conceptual value. So you may say, yeah, I'm married, but I have an alternative marriage. It means this. Not necessarily, no. As long as you're using that word and you're using even maybe the spelling or the phonetic, you're putting a spell on whatever it is that you're doing. So you're still locking yourself into that paradigm, no matter how much you think you've broken out of it by practicing that thing differently. So when we use these words like honor, when we use these words like character, when we use these words like warrior, or we use these words like integrity, and we try to transmutate them into our own understanding without first a collective agreement amongst many people in order to raise up the new word, then in fact we're still saying the old word. We're still bringing up the energy and the value of the old word. This was one of the values of hip-hop. Not only hip-hop, but the movement of the nation and gods and earths. When they came forth, what they did was they took the English language, because it was probably unrealistic at that time, things that were going on in this country, for certain groups of people to just totally learn a new language and become fluid in it. So what they did was they took the English language and they transmutated it into something that now had a new life and had a new meaning to it, and was able to break some of the paradigms that would associate it with certain words. Hip-hop did the same exact thing. It broke the paradigms of certain words. So if you've not done that, now the reason these things worked, because it was a collective agreement amongst many people. If you're not doing that with these words, it's not going to happen. So that's why I always explain the original root, source, meaning, and paradigm of the words that we're using in the words in question. When we're looking at the word integrity, of course it's broken up. There's several words. In means not or without, and tegratum means to touch. Okay, so in is not, and tegratum is to touch. So integrity, so we're dealing with the original roots of these words here. Integrity means something that is not touched. So when we look at the English definition, or the current modern English definition of integrity, we'll get an understanding or a reference to unblemished, one who is unblemished, or something that is unblemished. There is some truth in that, but as soon as you think of something that's unblemished, you immediately will go to the thought of something that is pure. Something that is blemished is flawed, okay? And that doesn't really relate itself to integrity. Again, remember, we're dealing with warrior code here and understanding what the warrior code is, what the warrior code is about. When you're dealing with integrity, or you're understanding and connecting with your own science and energy of integrity, what you're dealing with is your ability to be whole, to come into a situation and be whole and maintain course without being influenced by external circumstances. So, for instance, if one is speaking about the architecture of a building, they'll speak about the integrity of the framework, which we usually will relate to how strong is this building. Can this building take a hurricane? Can this building take a flood? Can this building just take the weathering of time? And if so, then we say that the building has sound, its integrity is sound. Okay, so it's the same thing when we're dealing with ourselves. Integrity can relate itself not only to stamina, but it relates itself with us being aware of what our original fight and code is about. In my book, Grasping the Root of Divine Power, I teach a divination system, the OB divination system, but the 9-position divination system. And in that divination system, I teach the casting Okaran. Well, Okaran is one, but a Kanran. And in that particular casting, what you have is the understanding of how male energy works. Okay, oftentimes when men are involved in a particular effort or initiative, it's good because they drive forward, drive forward with force and aggression. But one of the challenges that can come is that sometimes men will get caught up into the fight, or masculine energy. It doesn't just have to be a man. Masculine energy will get more caught up into the movement and the fight and forget why they were doing what they were doing to begin with. Okay, so sometimes when those readings and those castings come up and they have strong masculine energy over them, sometimes the client that's in front of me, sometimes, because it's all dependent on many other factors, and intuition and psychic ability being a very big one. But sometimes what it means is that this is a person who's involved in something and they've lost their original meaning for either living or their original meaning for even fight. Now they're just fighting for the sake of the fight, or they're moving for the sake of movement. Okay, many people do that out of fear. So when we're dealing with integrity, we understand that we're always in alignment with what our original intention is, and we do not allow anyone to blemish or touch that essence. It's like when you have children. You do not just allow anyone to take care of your children or to even be around your children. You know, you don't want their energy around the children. Why? Because typically, as it should be, your children are your primary essential. They're the primary objective and essential. So you will not allow people to blemish or touch that essence known as your children. Okay, you maintain an integral structure around the encampment of your child, because they represent your essence. They represent your core. They're not only your ancestors, but they're your next step in evolution. So when we're dealing with integrity in that sense, we understand that it's something that has to be protected, it's something that has to be honored, and it's something that always we can use as a reference point, your integrity. One without integrity flip-flops like the wind, okay? Of course, change is the only consistency of life. But when you have those who are constantly flip-flopping just because they're so weak in their thought, their mindset, or what they actually want to do in life, that they're very easy to sway. Okay, these are people who are also very easy to put hexes on and to do spiritual work against, because they have no integrity. Integrity and character are your primary weapons of defense to keep you from actually being harmed by malevolent forces that would seek to do you harm. And those may not be people. Those just may be malevolent forces. You have benevolent forces, you have malevolent forces, and you have forces that are vampirical and parasitical and always looking to hit your free ride. So when you have no integrity, it's very easy for those forces to sway you in a certain direction. Okay, so integrity deals with your wholeness and completeness. Now, there's another term that we use sometimes, especially when speaking about the divine, that's very critical here, and that term is perfect. You hear me oftentimes say that perfection is death. So one of the reasons that we're here on the planet and experiencing the levels of corruption that we experience is so that we can perfect beyond what was considered perfection. You know, perfection means that something is unchanging. Once something gets to the point that it's unchanging, it's stagnating. That means it's dying. That's a problem. So that's why I said people who are changing are not necessarily the issue, but people who are flip-flopping, who are kind of just blowing in the wind and have no anchor points, are problematic. You'll find that when you start to study really the energy of the Orisha, if you have not already, that this is synonymous with the energy of Oya. Okay, Oya not only representing chaotic transformation, but Oya representing the supplanting of power. And with Oya, what you have is she's wind, you know, so she's all over the place. Even her Odu, Osha Meji, represents an energy or a time when things are moving. And we may call it chaos, or we may call it trouble or viciousness or hurricanes or tornadoes, but things are moving a lot. So that's why in the mythology, at one point, Oya is consort to Ogun. Why is Oya consort to Ogun? Because Ogun is iron. He takes everything so serious. He's not moving. I don't care how much wind comes, you're not lifting up these train tracks. You know, you're not lifting up this iron sculpture. I'm here for the long haul. At least until Yemojak shows up and then starts to corrode me. You know, so the thing is that balance between our integrity, which would be our Ogun energy, and our desire and our ability to adapt and re-engineer, which would be our Oya energy, that energy that's constantly moving like a kite, okay, with the wind. But you can't follow everything that blows along in the wind. Now, getting back to the understanding of perfection, right? Perfection is death, of course. Perfection is stagnation. And more importantly, let's get to the understanding of the word perfect, coming from the French parfait or parfait, and before that, the Latin perfect, something like that. My Latin pronunciation is sometimes a little funny. It's about as bad as my Hindi. But ultimately, perfection means to either go through, to completely go through something, or to complete something. That's what perfection means. Perfection does not mean that, you know, I'm better than you, or you're better than me, or I can be no more than what I am. Perfection only means that I've completed my cycle. Okay, that's what perfection means. Now, if we can relate that understanding of perfection to our understanding of integrity, we'll understand that at our structure, when we have our integral structure intact, we are whole. Does that mean that we cannot be better? Does not mean that we cannot expand or we cannot shrink or things cannot change? No, it just means that we're untouched and we're whole. And the chances that we take in life to touch certain things and go certain places and experience certain things are not going to affect and mutilate our integral structure. This is the soul aspect of course, as you know. The soul is always unblemished. We learned this from the 42 declarations of Ma'at with the I have not. I have not means I'm still good, regardless of what he or she has. And when I say he or she, I'm speaking about consciousness observing, you know, the doer on the planet, the participator of human activity, him or her. That's your soul looking at yourself saying, yeah, he did this, he did that, but I did not do it. I did not do this, I did not do that. I have still maintained my integral structure, and therefore I have still maintained my wholeness and completeness. Now, I need a moment to be imperfect. Just a moment. Doesn't take long. And then through that moment of imperfection, I can expand and go to the next step. That's when I allow the human corruption to transform me, but I don't become a part of the human corruption. Okay? That's integrity. I can allow it to transform my vision of things. I can be around people who are completely corrupt, who have no integrity, and who live by no code. And I can understand them, watch them, overstand them, understand them, comprehend them. I can watch them and I can get a better knowing and experience of what the human experience is. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to change who and what I am. Now, this is pretty apt because recently within the class, the Anu Spiritual Training, well, in the group, not the actual class, but on one of the online social groups, they were having a conversation about interacting with family, and how sometimes interacting with family can be such a painful thing once you come to a place of self-awareness and self-growth and personal development, because typically they're the ones who want to pull you back to something that you were before, or remind you what you were before. This is what religion is, by the way. Religion means to pull back or to draw back, okay, which is almost the opposite of education. Education means to bring forth, okay? So, and that may not be a bad thing. Sometimes you need to be pulled back to your source, okay? But when your family or your ego becomes your religion, then you're always being pulled back to something that is decaying, that's devolving, and something that's temporary, which is dangerous. So your family typically wants to remind you of your temporary aspects. You know, they want to tell you, well, listen, I know you're into this new thing and this new spiritual thing or new religion, but you know how you are. You know, you'll go off the deep end. Things like that. It's like, no, that's how it was, but you don't really know me because there's been some changes. But you want to remind me of my egoic benchmarks and my timeline that's on my ego timeline. So perfection or integrity, you know, it deals with maintaining that wholeness, maintaining that completeness, and not allowing yourself to be caught or swept and absorbed into other people's stuff, quote unquote. So even though Oya is blowing all over the place, Ogun never stopped the work that he had to do. Okay, you want to go run? You're going to want to go run off with my brother now? You're going to cheat on me with Shango and leave me for him? But I still have to go back to the blacksmith shop. I still have to make iron. I still have to keep the world advancing and moving forward, because that is my character. And my integrity tells me to maintain the positions of my character, regardless of what's going on around me. Okay, so integrity is key in that, you know, again, because it has nothing to do with I'm going to do right or wrong. Only if my character dictates that right or wrong is a part of what I do, or if at source, at my wholeness, doing right or wrong helps you maintain my wholeness. Now, it's also important to consider when you're entering into relationships. Are you entering into your relationships with a sense of integrity? And when I say relationships, I'm not just speaking about your male-female relationships, your amorous relationships. I'm also speaking about the relationships that you have with the spirits that work with you. This is why in the Anu Spiritual Training, it's phased out, phase 1 through 3, because the first phase is just dealing with ministry to yourself, which takes a long time. You know, my students will testify to that. That first phase is a doozy. You know, even though that's the easiest phase out of the whole training, but it's a doozy. Maybe it's harder in some ways because you have to deal with your internal stuff. It's easier to go out and save the world. That's easy. You know, because all you got to do is read a book or watch a lecture or get some flashes of insight and then go out and share that. And you know, it may or may not change people. But to apply that same medicine to yourself is much more difficult. It may be hard for you to see the small of your back. You know, you can't always see things that are going on with you. like other people can, or like you can see other people's stuff. You know, so that ministry of self now promotes a situation where you come into your spiritual understanding whole. That means you come in with your full integrity. Once you come in with your full integrity, you're now more equipped to take all of the fortune, the ire, the blessings that are being bestowed or have already been bestowed to you, because your integral structure can now maintain and support what is being offered and given to you. So that's why integrity is so important. If you don't have integrity in life, you don't get what you are owed. Okay, we can preach prosperity, we can preach abundance, you can do ebos, you can do offerings, you can burn candles, you can throw flowers and honey into the river, but if you have no integrity, if you have not locked into your integral structure, if you have not supported your integral structure, you get nothing. That's just how it is. And I know that may not feel good to hear, but one of the challenges that we have in Orisha and just indigenous understanding is that a lot of times people live the most weak lives. You know, they don't step out and stand on their strengths, and then they get an opportunity to be initiated or be given a title, and they receive this title, and now they think that that's going to completely change who and what they are. Like now the spirits are going to have to respond to them differently because they have some type of title or they went through some type of experience. And the spirits will still say, if you are not approaching me with integrity, then you are not bringing your whole self to the party. If you're not bringing your whole self to the party, then I don't really know what you want from me. I don't know how much to give to you, because I don't know if you'll be able. You're bringing me one hand. Can you hold everything in one hand? Or do you need two hands to hold everything so you can carry what I have for you? If you do not bring both hands, then I can't give you everything. I can only give you some crumbs. Okay, so integrity is a key thing, not just in terms of your warrior code, but in terms of your spiritual development and in terms of your identification and your qualifications that you apply to your leadership. Those who you decide you want to lead you, or, you know, be a part of the work that you do, or you want to be a part of the work that they do, you have to just first determine, are they coming with integrity? Are they bringing everything to the table? Or do you always sense that either there's some other agenda working in the background, or maybe because of their damage, you know, the damage that they're suffering, they're not able to bring their whole self to the experience. And that's very common, because a lot of the people who get into healing work are damaged people. They get into healing work because they're trying to figure out what's wrong with them. You know, so during that process, they become wise. And in their wisdom, they start helping other people. And when they start helping other people, it makes them feel good about themselves. And then it goes on and on. But they never actually get a point to stop and take care of what was wrong with them to begin with. They almost believe now that they don't need to, because people are being healed and people are being touched. But people are not receiving what they could receive because you're not bringing all of yourself to the table. You're not being a person who's modeling integrity. So that's something you want to look at in terms of that code, is a person bringing their whole self to the table. And if they're not, you can't force them to. There's nothing you can do about it. But you just know now what type of individual that you'll be asking to lead you or not. So, you know, this Thunderground Thursday, I wanted to really address that and speak on integrity and what it means and the scenario of the warrior code and the leadership skills that we have to develop, or we have to at least be able to spot. And integrity is a key one. Okay, without integrity, to be honest, none of the other ones really work. You know, so that's why I said it's almost like a source thing, because integrity deals with you at your perfect state. You at your perfect state just means that you're complete, you're whole, you're finishing what you're doing. If you don't finish the work that you're supposed to put your hand to, then whatever you build, whatever you touch is going to be incomplete. So now this also means that students who come under you, people who are part of your organizations, if you're not coming with a sense of integrity, then your teachings are not whole. A lot of times we fall into this bad trap of, we'll have issues with our teacher or with our leadership, and we'll say, well, you know what? I'm not going to be so concerned about how they are because I know what I came here to get, right? So if we say, I know what I came here to get, then we feel like we're wise enough just to extrapolate the wisdom of the information that we want and leave whatever these people are doing to itself. Let them deal with that, but they got some good information that I want to get a hold of. But we don't understand, if the person is not coming with their full integrous structure, if their full integrous structure is not a part of what they're doing, then you're not getting full teachings. So you'll wonder why I'm getting smarter, I'm getting wiser, but my life is not changing. It's not just about the words that people give you. It's not just about the wisdom that people give you. There's an energy that people can endow you with just by teaching you. You know, when you sit up underneath certain teachers, they don't even have to speak. There's certain blessings and strength that will come to you because you're sitting under someone with integrity. And that integrity radiates, it glows. And you start to receive that. You become wiser without them even speaking. Okay? So when a person is not bringing integrity to the table, you're not really getting the meal that you think you're getting. You're not really getting the teachings that you think you're getting. When you look at some of the preachers or the speakers or the lecturers or whatever, and you know stuff about them, like, yo, you've seen or you've had personal experiences where it's like, this person is not on the money, you know, then you have to understand that their teachings reflect that. And what you receive, going back to the food, right? I did the piece on food, spiritual food, speaking to Yusuf L. You know, if you haven't checked out that show or that video, you can get it on YouTube. I think it's Yusuf L and H. Yuya, Assaan-anu Part 3, something like that. But you'll find it. And I spoke about the esoteric properties of food. Okay, so if your food doesn't have its integrous structure, then you're not getting all of what the food is supposed to give you. Now, you think you are because your stomach is full, it's not growling anymore, you got maybe a little bit more energy, but you're not getting what you were supposed to get. So in fact, you're confusing your body and you develop sickness. So in the same sense, in your sicknesses, in your teachings, if you're not receiving all that you're supposed to receive from an integrous person, then in effect, you're receiving sick teachings, distorted, warped teachings. And if you're receiving distorted, warped teachings, and that's your food that you're ingesting, no matter how much you think you're filtering it, well, I filter, I take what I want. Most of the time, I hate to break it to you, most of the time when you're not really qualified as a student yet, which many are not, you don't really know what's good for you and what's not good for you. You know what feels good, but what is your reference point? Your reference point should be your own integrity. And so many students come to the table without a full integrous structure. So it's not to say you can't determine what's good for you and what's bad for you, but if you're not coming to the table with your integrity, you won't know. You think you'll know. You think it'll feel this way or that makes sense. Of course it makes sense to you because you're at this level. So whatever someone says to you at this level is going to make sense to you. If someone says something at this level, it's not going to make sense to you. It's not going to feel good. You're not going to want it. But your integrous structure, if you're coming with integrity, your integrous structure will grab onto it because your integrous structure is a product of your soul. So if I'm speaking from the soul and I'm letting my integrity reflect and express outward, and you're listening from the soul as a student, then you're going to connect, you're going to rise up like you're supposed. Something to look forward or look for in your leaders. And again, I will be bringing more subjects forth because I see how vital necessary it is just to speak about the basics. Also tune in tomorrow for tomorrow. You know, I'm not good with times, but whenever this video will come out on time and this audio will come out on time. But Thunderground Foundational Fridays, it's been some months since I've done one, and this Foundational Friday I'll be speaking on the science of string theory or super string theory and how it relates to your spiritual growth, development, and past life regressive therapy, super string theory. All right, so with that said, I am H. Yuya Assaan, otherwise known as Chief Yuya, otherwise known as the Jegna. And it has been my pleasure to speak to you again on another Thunderground Thursday. And be sure to tune in. Also, those who are following the tour, next stop is Dallas, Texas. I'll be out there, I believe, on the 15th. Check the events calendar. Please come out. I'll be at the Pan-African Connection bookstore, which I'm really excited to go to because places like Texas, it's not a lot of outlets for our information. So whenever we find one, I think it's very important to support them and let them know that we're here and, you know, show up, because it's not often that they have events and things like that, or that we can just come through and show that level of support. So please come out, especially students who are in that area. If you know people in that area, bring them out. And then the next day, I'll be in New Orleans at the King and Queen's Emporium. I think that's on Bayou Street, something like that. Again, another venue you need to come out and support. I'm really looking forward to both of those spaces and inching my way back over to the East Coast, you know. But in any event, come check us out. Check out the event list. Recently, I sent out an email to a select group of people to come on and, you know, if they were open to it, and to some opportunities to volunteer as our new staff for some of the works that we're doing, because we're in the process of doing some major expansion. And I wanted to open up opportunities for some of the students to really get more involved, you know, and really put their opinions and their perspectives and their stamp on some of the work that we're doing. So for those of you who have gotten that email, I didn't send it to everyone, but those of you who did get it, definitely reach back out when you can, so we can start putting some things in place. And that's the first round. I'm going to send out another one too for some other things that we have going on. But in any event, I am Chief Yuya. This has been another Thunderground Thursday. I love doing these segments. And tune in tomorrow, of course, for Foundational Fridays. And until next time, all right? Peace.